Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing 3 different palette reviews, 3 different eyeshadow palettes. I just thought that I would group all of these into one review video, and I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible so that it's not a super long video. I just felt like I didn't want my next bunch of videos to all be review videos, so I thought that I would just kind of group it into one video. One of the palettes is pretty new, but one of them is not, and then the other one is a very limited edition one that is, as I'm filming this right now, still like 10 of them left, I think, but it might be gone by the time I do this. So I just wanted to get this one out, and I didn't want to do a dedicated video on that one in case it sells out before I even upload this. The first one is the Dominique Cosmetics Berries and Cream palette, which is a pretty new palette, and that's the one that I'm wearing on my eyes today. So we'll talk about that one first. Then we have the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill palette. This is the Dark Magic one from the Vault. And this one is not quite as new. I mean, it's still, you know, within the last year, but it's not quite as new as the Berries and Cream. And then the one that I said is very limited edition is the Blush Tribe and Paulina palette. So just check the description box below to know if this is still available. You can check on their website, of course, but as I'm filming this, I remember that Paulina posted that there were like 10 of them left, so it could be gone by the time I post this. It could be still available, so you could still get it. But let's just get into some of these reviews. So the Dominique Cosmetics Berries and Cream. I didn't think I was gonna get this one at first, and then the more I looked at it, the more I realized this palette is for me. Why wouldn't I get this palette? I mean, I love my purples and berries, and this is just so beautiful. I really love the color story of it. So I just wanted to wait until it came to Sephora, which it's funny because when I originally got the Dominique Cosmetics Latte palette, which I really do enjoy, I got that one when it was available at Ulta. There was a short period of time where Dominique Cosmetics was available at Ulta, and then they switched to Sephora. I don't know why or how that happens, but nevertheless. So I've had the Latte palette for a little while. I actually reviewed that one as well. I did a look with that one too, and I just have been loving that palette. I still do really love that palette. But Dominique Cosmetics then also came out with the Lemonade palette, which for a very long time I've been looking at that one. I still do sometimes, but that one got some mixed reviews, and so I passed on that one. And when this one came out, I just really wanted to get it, and I was hoping that it would be just like the Latte palette in the formulation, and I have not been disappointed. So I just wanted to kind of show you just quickly what's on my eyes. I blended soft and sweet and bittersweet into my crease, mostly bittersweet, of course. And then obviously I used the navy blue Blueberry Muffin in there, which I think is just such a stunning shade. Really love that. And then I put Sugar Cookie right on the lid there. It's just such a gorgeous, like very pale, pinky, shifty white color. It's gorgeous. It's so beautiful. On my inner corners, I put some of Sweet Cream, which is almost a little bit of a satin. It's not a complete matte, but it's pretty matte. And then on my lower lash line, I put a little bit of Soft and Sweet and Bittersweet again. And then I put some of Cranberry right on the lower lash line just to kind of add a little pop. And I just have been loving this palette. Every time I create a look, I feel like they're very different. You know, you can create a lot of different types of looks, I feel like, with this palette. And that's something that I think about when I'm using a palette is, you know, when I'm doing different looks, do they all look the same or are they looking different? And sometimes I want to create looks that look a certain way and, you know, each time, but I want to feel like I'm creating something new every time I use it, you know, and I feel like I can do that with this one. You know, there are a lot of those beautiful berry tones in here, but then you still have this beautiful like bronzy gold color honey dipped, which is really beautiful. It's not super unique, but it's still really beautiful, and I like that it's in here. This Warm Pie is so unique. I tried this in my first impression video of this palette. You can watch that one up above there. And it's a matte with lots of glitter through it, but it doesn't fall on your face and it doesn't disappear when you use it. And I think that that's so beautiful and so unique. It's such a cool shade. I've never seen anything like it. I love that all of these mattes in here, I mean, obviously cherry juice and bittersweet, but even I feel like soft and sweet, toasted, chocolate mousse, I feel like they almost have a berry tone to them. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. I love that there's a black in here. It's a great black. It adds a lot to the palette, even though obviously I have lots of blacks in my collection. It's still good if I wanted to travel with something like this. I really have been loving it. It's the same formula for me as the Latte palette. The mattes are super soft and blendable and pigmented and easy to work with, and the shimmers are intense, and you don't even have to wet them if you don't want to. Obviously, they're going to be more foiled and intense if you do, but they don't need it. I just think that it's an absolutely fabulous palette. It's a different format than the Latte, and I think it's slightly more expensive, but I think it's completely worth it. You still get a ton of shadow in here and obviously more shades than the Latte palette. But if this is more your color scheme than the Latte palette, you will not be disappointed. It's just absolutely fabulous, and I've been so enjoying using it, and I'm really, really glad that I decided to get it. In fact, one time I wore a look that I did from this palette on a date night with my husband, and he complimented my eyeshadow, and that doesn't happen very often. So, this palette. So then let's talk about the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill Vault palette in Dark Magic. Really such a gorgeous, sorry about this mirror. Let's see, I'll turn it this way. Really such a gorgeous, unique color story. And I actually, this is gonna be hard to hold here. I actually got this as a gift from a friend of mine, so thank you again. I was so excited because I didn't end up getting any of the palettes from the Vault because there was so much controversy. You know, some people were loving their palettes, some people were not. They ended up coming out with new palettes because some of the PR kits, people were really unhappy with how they were performing. So there was just so much drama, and I was worried about not enjoying the palette. And this is a $15 palette, which is not expensive, but it's still $15. You still want to, you know, enjoy your purchase, of course. And with shades like these greens and the blue in there, I mean, these could be shadows that are tricky to work with. And so, you know, if they're not good quality, that could be a real pain in the butt. But I'm happy to report that I've been really having very good luck with this palette. So if there are different formulations, if there are different versions, I've gotten a good one. So I'm really thrilled about that. Every time I create a look with this palette, I feel like it's so stunning and unique and impactful, and I've not been having trouble working with it. I mentioned in my first impression video, which I can link up there if you want to watch it, I set my primer because I don't usually do that, I would say, because I find that I don't need to, and that the shadows, you know, stick a little bit better and they pop a little bit better if I don't set it with powder. But when I used this palette for the first time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that so that I don't have any trouble blending and I don't work against this palette. So I actually used this shade right here to set my lid, and I didn't have any trouble. I did find that, you know, they were a little less pigmented than I feel like they could have been if I hadn't set them, but I continue to try it, and I have used this since without setting my primer. And while I do feel like I have to work a little bit harder to blend, it's not impossible and it's not anything crazy. And I can definitely still make it work and make it look blended without setting my primer. So I would say, you know, if you're impatient, then maybe set it. But you still will have to build it up a little bit more if you do set it. So it's sort of a trade-off. But I do feel like these are such unique, beautiful shades. If you've been looking for some greens, and you know, this blue I had really good luck with. It's definitely a different blue than the one in the Dominique Cosmetics palette. It's a little more of like a teal blue. This one's a little bit more of like a true navy, the one in here. So they are very different, but I created a look, I can pop it up on the screen actually, using just these two shades, and I loved it. I thought it looked beautiful, and I've been loving all of these greens. I've just been really happy with it. So, you know, I would say get it from Ulta if you're curious about it, if you want to try it, because then if it ends up being not what you'd hoped, and if it's not you know, maybe the good version, you can return it. But I've been having really good luck with it, and I know that not everyone has, but I am not a pro. I'm definitely not a makeup artist, and so if I had an easy time with it, then probably you could too. I mean, I wouldn't say that this is a beginner palette just because of the shades and because of how intense they are and, you know, more cool toned, but if you are somebody who loves makeup, but you feel like you're not a pro, I think you still could really have good luck with this one. So I'm really thrilled that I got it. I probably wouldn't have gotten it myself, and I'm really pleasantly surprised because I've just been having such great luck with it, and I'm really glad that it's in my collection now. Then the last one is the Paulina palette from Blush Tribe. I actually just did my first impression on this one most recently, so I can link that one up above for you to see. And I also filmed another makeup look with this palette. I'm not sure if this is going to go up before the look. I'm not totally sure on that one. So if it's up, then I'll link it down below. If not, then stay tuned for that one. But the thing is, you know, if you did not get this palette, if you're not planning on getting this palette, or you didn't get a chance to get this because it's sold out, you know, I know this is very limited release, very limited edition, so not everyone is going to get this. But the point is, you know, if you see my video with the look, you can create it with other shadows that you have, or just enjoy the video. It doesn't have to be, you know, something where you have to recreate it. And, you know, if you want to recreate it, you can just, you know, use other things in your collection that are similar, honestly. But if it is still available, if you are interested in this palette, I would definitely recommend it. I've been really loving it. I think that it's very, very pretty. I love the color story, and I've been very happy with the way that these shadows perform. I have the Hasina 2 palette, which also has the purples and the greens in it, but different. I think that these are definitely different than the ones in those. In fact, I've been having a lot more luck with the shade Aubergine than I had with the purple in the Hasina 2. They are different purples, but this one I found to work better than that one. And I also feel like these shimmers have worked better for me than the ones in the Hasina 2. These are much more intense and foiled. I definitely feel like these two are a little bit like looser, if that makes sense. But not too bad. Like, it's not like they fall all over your face. You just have to be careful with them. I would say use a glitter glue. I do anyway, but I feel like it helps, you know, with the fallout, and I do my eyes first usually anyway. This one is a little more, I hate to say tightly packed because it's not tightly packed, but it's not quite as loose as the other two. I will say what's funny is when I was doing my first impression, I commented on how these two pinks were a little too close in my opinion, and that these two looked a little bit more different. But the funny thing was, and you'll see that when you see the look that I did with the greens, these ended up being a lot more similar than these two. These actually were a little bit more different than I had realized before I used them. This one is definitely much more deep and intense than this one. And these two end up being pretty similar. So that's, I guess, the only like little complaint that I have. When you actually use both of these on your eyes, they end up looking pretty similar. I feel like if you use them separately, they would look a little more different. But when you use them together, like I started out with Humble and then tried to deepen it up with Sige, they looked very, very similar, and it didn't get as deep as I wanted it to. But that's really not that big of a deal. I just went in with a black to kind of intensify it a little bit more. This shade is a real standout in this palette to me. That is an amazing shade. It is just as intense and vibrant on the eyes as it looks in the pan and as it swatches. It's not chalky, even though it is sort of like a neon pastel kind of shade, and it's just a really impressive shade the way that it performs. I was so impressed even using it, you know, just on top of primer, not on a white base. It really still popped, and it was just absolutely stunning. I think that that's a real standout in this palette for me. I'm really glad that I got it. I got it because I love Paulina. I watch her here on YouTube all the time. I can link her channel down below. And so I wanted to get this palette because I wanted to support her, because I really enjoy her. I think she's a really sweet person, and I, you know, wanted to get this, you know, to celebrate her. But I'm also really glad that I got it because it's just beautiful. So if it is still available, again, just, you know, check the link down below because there are so few left that I can't tell by the time I put this up if it's going to be still available, but if it is, I do highly recommend it. The only thing that I will point out is that Blush Tribe is, and I mentioned this in my first impression, but they are a UK indie brand. And, you know, when it comes to indie brands, you know, you are usually going to pay for shipping, and that doesn't bother me. I do hate paying for shipping, if you know me, but I totally get it when it comes to indie brands, and I don't, you know, I'm okay with that. And, you know, it being international, at least for me, obviously it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but there used to be the shipping option where it was sort of the least expensive one where you couldn't track it. While I didn't enjoy not being able to track it, it was still a fairly inexpensive way to ship it to me. Now they don't have that option anymore. You have to pay a little bit more expensive shipping so that you can track it, because they had a bunch of palettes that went missing. And, you know, so I totally understand that, but it's just something to point out that the shipping will be a little bit more expensive than what I had paid for it. If you were to go and purchase it now, it probably would be over $10 for shipping, which, you know that you're gonna have a little bit better luck with getting your palette, and you won't have to worry and wonder where it is because you'll be able to track it, but it will be just a little bit more expensive. So you might want to, you know, if you're going to make a purchase from Blush Tribe, purchase a few different things, you know, instead of kind of, you know, palette by palette or whatever. But when it comes to this one, it is, you know, going to sell out probably pretty soon if it hasn't already. So if you really do want this, I would say it's totally worth it. It's still fairly inexpensive even with the shipping, but just something to keep in mind. All right, everyone, so that is it for these 3 palette reviews. Let me know in the comments below if you have tried any of these palettes, or if you haven't and now you would really like to try. I'm glad that all 3 of these were positive experiences for me. I do really try to make educated purchases when it comes to, especially, I mean, with all of my makeup, but especially eyeshadow palettes, because I love eyeshadow palettes and because they can be a little bit more expensive. And so I want to try and make sure it's going to be something that I'm going to enjoy, because I don't want to have to return an eyeshadow palette. Obviously, some you can't, but of the ones that I could return, I really prefer not to, because, you know, it does end up being a waste. And so I really try to make wise purchases as best as I can. But luckily, I do love all 3 of these palettes, so I'm really happy to report that. Definitely let me know if there are any palettes coming out soon that you are interested in me reviewing. I would love to hear if there's anything that is piquing your interest. If you like this video, please make sure and give it a big thumbs up. That really does help out my channel so much. I post videos every single Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Time. If you are not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I would love for you to stick around, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye.